Why are so many people over 50 suddenly eating a spoonful of peanut butter right before they turn off the lights? And should you be doing the exact same thing? That is what we are getting into today. And I will be honest with you, the first time someone told me this, I thought it sounded almost too simple to matter. Peanut butter, right before sleep. But the more I looked into what actually happens inside the body overnight, the more it started to make real sense. I have spent years studying how everyday nutrition choices affect adults as they move into their 50s, 60s, and beyond. And one thing keeps coming up again and again. Some of the most useful tools for staying strong, staying sharp, and staying independent are already sitting in your kitchen cabinet. Most people just never connect the dots. Here is what most people over 50 do not realize. Your body does not clock out the moment you fall asleep. It shifts into a completely different kind of work. It starts repairing muscle. It starts trying to steady your blood sugar. It starts preparing your brain for the next day. And what you eat in the hour before bed can either help that process along or quietly get in its way. Nutrition researchers have pointed out for years that unstable blood sugar overnight is one of the most overlooked reasons adults over 50 wake up feeling groggy. Most people just blame it on getting older. But the real explanation might be something far more fixable than that. So stick with me, because over the next few minutes, I am going to walk you through what peanut butter appears to do inside your body while you sleep, who should consider adding it to their nighttime routine, who should be a little more careful with it, and the smartest way to actually eat it if you want to get the most benefit. Let's start from the beginning. Before we even get to peanut butter specifically, I want you to understand something most people completely overlook. Your body is not idle at night. It is busy. Once you lie down and drift off, your system shifts into what you could call maintenance mode, and this becomes especially important once you pass the age of 50. Here is what is actually happening while you sleep tonight. Your muscles go through small repair cycles, tiny amounts of daily wear and tear getting patched back together fiber by fiber. Your brain works through a kind of overnight cleanup, clearing out waste that built up during the day. Your heart rate slows down, your blood pressure eases, and your hormones quietly reset themselves so you're ready to face the next morning. This is not some wellness trend, this is basic biology. It happens every single night whether you support it or not. Now here is where it gets personal. After 50, this overnight repair process naturally starts to slow. Your body produces less growth hormone while you sleep. Your muscles do not bounce back the way they used to. And your blood sugar, this is the big one, becomes noticeably less stable overnight compared to when you were younger. What does that actually look like in real life? It looks like waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning for no obvious reason. It looks like feeling stiff and heavy when you get out of bed, even after a full night's sleep. It looks like your energy feeling a little off before you've even had your first coffee. Does any of that sound familiar? Research into aging and sleep has consistently shown that adults over 50 tend to experience more overnight blood sugar swings than younger adults, and those swings tend to interrupt the deeper, more restorative stages of sleep. Most people never make that connection. They just accept it as part of getting older. But here's what I want you to sit with for a second. It doesn't have to be that way. What you eat in that small window before bed, somewhere around 30 to 60 minutes before you lie down, can genuinely influence every one of those overnight processes. The right food gives your body the raw materials it needs to repair, stabilize, and recover. The wrong food, or no food at all, can leave your system scrambling, and that is usually when sleep starts to suffer. So the real question here is not simply, is peanut butter okay before bed? The real question is, what does your body actually need overnight to function at its best? And once you understand that, the peanut butter piece starts to make a lot more sense. Keep watching, because in the next part, I want to show you exactly why blood sugar matters so much overnight, and why it might be the single biggest factor on this entire list. Let's talk about blood sugar first, because everything else we cover really builds on this. Now, I know the second people hear blood sugar, their mind jumps straight to diabetes, to medication, to something that only affects other people. But here's the truth. Blood sugar stability affects nearly every adult over 50, diagnosed with anything or not. Picture a normal night with no evening snack at all. You finish dinner around 6 or 7, By the time you actually get into bed, your last meal was 4 or 5 hours ago. Your body has been slowly burning through the glucose from that meal the whole time, and by the time midnight rolls around, your blood sugar has often dropped lower than you'd expect. When it drops too far, your body reacts. It releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline to pull stored sugar back into your bloodstream. And those stress hormones are what nudge you awake. Not with alarm bells, just enough to pull you out of deep sleep, just enough to leave you restless. Just enough that you wake up exhausted even though you technically slept 8 hours. Sound like anyone you know? This is where peanut butter becomes genuinely interesting. It has a relatively low glycemic index, which means it doesn't spike your blood sugar and then crash it. Instead, it tends to release energy slowly over a longer stretch of time. It combines protein, healthy fat, and a small amount of complex carbohydrate, and that combination happens to line up almost perfectly with what your body needs to hold blood sugar steady through the night. Think of it like putting a slow-burning log on the fire before you go to bed. The fire doesn't roar, it doesn't flare up and die out. It just holds steady, low, and warm for hours. That's roughly what a small amount of peanut butter can do for your blood sugar overnight. And when your blood sugar stays steadier, your stress hormones stay calmer. Your body stays in repair mode instead of emergency mode, and your sleep has a much better shot at staying deep. Still with me? Good, because what's coming next ties directly into how easily you actually fall asleep in the first place. Let's talk about sleep quality, not just sleep duration, because here's something most people don't realize. You can lie in bed for 8 full hours and still wake up feeling like it barely counted. And a lot of that comes down to what your brain has to work with at night. Melatonin is your main sleep hormone. Your brain starts producing more of it as it gets dark outside, which is part of why you naturally start feeling drowsy in the evening. But melatonin doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It needs raw materials to be made. Specifically, it starts with an amino acid called tryptophan. Tryptophan gets converted into serotonin, your calming, feel-good brain chemical, and serotonin then gets converted into melatonin. It's a chain reaction, and if any link in that chain is missing, sleep tends to suffer. Peanuts are a natural, though modest, source of tryptophan. But here's what makes peanut butter particularly useful in this equation. The healthy fat in it appears to help tryptophan cross into the brain more efficiently. In plain language, the fat helps usher that sleep-supporting building block where it actually needs to go, instead of it getting used up elsewhere in the body first. So when you eat a small amount of peanut butter before bed, you're not just having a snack. You're essentially handing your brain some of the raw material it needs to produce its own natural sleep hormone. That's not nothing. That's actually a pretty elegant little mechanism. And here's something worth sitting with for a second. How many nights have you stared at the ceiling, frustrated, wondering why sleep just doesn't come as easily as it used to? What if part of that answer has been sitting quietly in your pantry the whole time? Keep watching, because we're just getting started. Let's talk about something a lot of people over 50 deal with but rarely bring up out loud. Waking up hungry in the middle of the night, or lying there unable to drift off because your stomach is quietly grumbling. Not loudly, just enough to be distracting. And I want to be clear, this is not a willpower problem. This is not overeating. This is biology doing what biology does as we age. As we get older, our hunger hormones shift. Ghrelin, the hormone that tells your brain you need food, tends to become more sensitive. Leptin, the hormone that tells your brain you're satisfied, you can stop eating, tends to become less effective at sending that message. This shift is a well-documented part of aging. It is not something you're imagining. And when those hormones are out of balance overnight, sleep becomes fragmented. You wake up, you can't get comfortable, and by morning, you're exhausted and often hungrier than you'd expect to be. So what might peanut butter do here? 2 things, roughly speaking. First, the protein in it can help quiet ghrelin somewhat, taking a little of the edge off that feed me signal overnight. Second, the fat content slows how quickly your stomach empties, which is just a technical way of saying the feeling of fullness sticks around longer. You're not stuffed, you're not heavy, you're just comfortable enough that hunger isn't what wakes you up at 2 a.m. One important note here. We are talking about a small, intentional amount, not a large snack before bed. I'll give you the exact portion later on, so stay with me for that. This next part matters, especially if you move your body at all, even something as simple as a daily walk. Because here's what most people don't realize. Muscle doesn't actually build or repair itself while you're active. It repairs while you sleep. Every set of stairs, every walk around the block, groceries you carry in from the car, all of that creates small amounts of stress in your muscle fibers. That's completely normal. That's actually healthy. But the real repair work happens later, during deep sleep, when your body releases growth hormone and gets to work rebuilding. The problem is that after 50, this repair process becomes noticeably less efficient. Researchers sometimes call this anabolic resistance. Basically, your muscles don't respond to protein as readily as they once did. You often need a bit more protein, delivered a bit more strategically, to get the same result you used to get without even trying. And this is exactly where a small nighttime protein source starts to matter. Some research into aging and muscle recovery has found that a modest amount of protein before sleep can support overnight muscle repair in older adults more effectively than skipping it altogether. 2 tablespoons of peanut butter contains somewhere around 7 to 8 grams of protein. It's not a massive dose, but at night, when your body is quietly working and needs a steady trickle of amino acids to draw from, even that modest amount can make a measurable difference. Think of it as leaving the right tools out on the workbench before the night shift comes in to do their job. If you're someone who deals with that stiff, achy feeling first thing in the morning, this part might be one of the more relevant things you hear today. Your body genuinely wants to repair itself. It just needs a little support to do it properly. Still with me? Good. Let's talk about what you actually feel the moment you wake up. Let's talk about mornings specifically. That groggy, slow, where am I? Feeling that so many people over 50 have simply learned to accept as normal. Most people blame their age. Some blame poor sleep in general. Others just reach for an extra cup of coffee and push through the fog. But here's a piece of the puzzle that often gets missed. When your blood sugar drops overnight and your body releases stress hormones to compensate, those hormones can still be slightly elevated when you actually wake up. Your cortisol is a little higher than it needs to be first thing in the morning. Your body is essentially starting the day already in a mild stress state before you've even gotten out of bed. And that tends to show up as brain fog, low motivation, and that heavy dragging feeling that can take hours to shake off. Now flip that scenario. When your blood sugar stays steadier overnight, thanks in part to that slow release combination of protein and fat, your stress hormones tend to stay calmer too. Your body gets to complete its repair cycles with fewer interruptions, and your brain wakes up in a more rested state. The result? You open your eyes and you actually feel ready. Not perfect, not superhuman, just clearer, more present, genuinely rested. Some researchers studying cognitive aging have suggested that stable overnight blood sugar may be just as closely tied to morning mental clarity as total hours slept, if not more so. So it's not only about how long you sleep. It's about the quality of what's happening during those hours. And that small spoonful of peanut butter before bed may be quietly supporting all of it. I want to go a little deeper here because peanut butter isn't just protein and fat. There's a mineral tucked inside it that a lot of adults over 50 are quietly running low on, and it touches sleep, muscle function, heart rhythm, and stress levels all at once. That mineral is magnesium. 2 tablespoons of natural peanut butter contain a meaningful amount of magnesium, generally somewhere in the range of a few dozen milligrams. That's not a trivial contribution. Here's why that matters. Magnesium is sometimes referred to as the relaxation mineral, and there's a real reason for that. It helps activate your parasympathetic nervous system, the part of your body responsible for slowing your heart rate and telling your system it's safe to power down for the night. It also plays a role in supporting GABA activity, a calming brain chemical that makes it easier to both fall asleep and stay asleep. Some nutrition research has linked low magnesium intake with a higher likelihood of insomnia, nighttime muscle cramps, and generally lower sleep quality in older adults. And many adults, especially as they get older, simply don't get quite enough magnesium from their day-to-day diet. Now combine that with the healthy monounsaturated fats found in peanut butter, the same category of fat you'll find in olive oil and avocado. These fats are generally associated with lower levels of inflammation, and chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the more common reasons older adults feel stiff, sore, or mentally foggy first thing in the morning. So when you eat a small amount of peanut butter before bed, you're not just having a late-night snack. You're getting a bit of magnesium to help calm your nervous system, some healthy fat that may help with inflammation, and a modest dose of protein to support muscle repair, all while you sleep. That's a fair amount of quiet work coming from 2 tablespoons. Now, I know what some of you are already thinking. Doesn't eating before bed just cause weight gain? Everyone knows that. I hear this constantly, and I want to address it head on, because the actual science tells a more nuanced story than that old rule of thumb suggests. The idea that eating before bed automatically leads to weight gain is an oversimplification. What actually matters most is your total daily calorie intake and the type of food you're eating late at night. A large sugary snack right before bed, yes, that can spike insulin, disrupt your metabolism overnight, and encourage fat storage. But a small, protein and fat-based snack like peanut butter tells a fairly different story. Some nutrition studies looking at small, protein-rich nighttime snacks in the range of roughly 100 to 150 calories have found they don't appear to promote fat gain in otherwise healthy adults, and in some cases may even support a slightly steadier metabolism overnight. Here's the likely mechanism behind that. If you go to bed hungry, with your blood sugar dropping through the night, your body can interpret that as a mild scarcity signal. And the body's typical response to scarcity is to slow metabolism down and hold on to fat stores just in case. When you instead give your body a small, steady source of fuel, it's more likely to stay in a balanced state of repair and normal fat metabolism throughout the night, rather than shifting into conservation mode. So if you're an adult over 50 who is mindful of your weight, a small amount of peanut butter before bed is not automatically working against you. Done thoughtfully, it might actually support what you're trying to do. The key word there is small, and I'll get to the exact amount in just a moment. Let's talk about your heart for a second, because for a lot of you watching, heart health isn't just an abstract topic. It's personal. Maybe you've had a scare. Maybe someone close to you has. Maybe your doctor has mentioned your cholesterol or your blood pressure, and it's been sitting quietly in the back of your mind ever since. This next part is really for you. Peanut butter is largely made up of monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, the same broad category of fats found in foods like olive oil, almonds, and salmon. These are generally considered heart-friendly fats, and diets that lean on this type of fat instead of heavily saturated or trans fats tend to be associated with more favorable cholesterol patterns over time, including somewhat higher levels of HDL, the good cholesterol that helps clear excess cholesterol out of your bloodstream. Peanut butter also contains a modest amount of plant sterols, compounds that can help block some cholesterol absorption in the gut, along with a small amount of niacin, a B vitamin that's been studied for its role in cardiovascular health. None of this makes peanut butter a magic fix for heart health, and it's absolutely not a replacement for medication, monitoring, or your doctor's guidance. But, as part of a broader pattern of eating that already leans toward whole foods, it's a reasonable, heart-conscious choice rather than something to be afraid of. Now let's get practical, because I know some of you are wondering exactly how you're supposed to do this. The amount matters more than almost anything else we've talked about today. We are not talking about a heaping spoonful straight from the jar, and we're definitely not talking about a peanut butter sandwich as a bedtime ritual. The sweet spot most nutrition-minded practitioners point to is roughly 1 to 2 tablespoons, eaten about 30 to 60 minutes before you actually lie down. Choose a natural peanut butter if you can, one where the only ingredients are peanuts and maybe a pinch of salt. Many of the mass-market peanut butters on the shelf are loaded with added sugar and hydrogenated oils, which can undo a lot of the benefit we've spent this whole video talking about. Read the label. If sugar is one of the first 3 ingredients, put it back and look for something simpler. As for how to eat it, you have options. A spoonful on its own works perfectly well. Some people prefer it spread thin on a small slice of whole grain toast or stirred into a small cup of warm milk, which can add a bit of extra calcium and its own mild calming effect. What you want to avoid is pairing it with something high in sugar right before bed, like jelly, honey, or chocolate, since that can undercut the steady, slow release effect we've been describing this entire time. If you have a peanut allergy, obviously, none of this applies to you, and you should not go anywhere near peanut butter. If you're managing blood sugar closely with medication, or you have any specific dietary restrictions, it's worth a quick conversation with your doctor before making this part of your nightly routine, just to make sure it fits with everything else going on with your health. This video is meant to inform you, not replace the guidance of the people who know your specific medical history. For most healthy adults over 50, though, a small amount of natural peanut butter in the evening is a low-risk, potentially high-reward habit worth trying for a couple of weeks to see how your body responds. Some people notice a difference within a few nights. For others, it takes a little longer for the pattern to become clear. Either way, it's a small, inexpensive experiment with very little downside. So let's bring this all together. As we get older, our bodies become a little less efficient overnight. Blood sugar gets shakier, muscle repair slows down, hunger hormones drift out of balance, and all of that adds up to restless nights and groggy mornings that we've simply learned to accept as just getting older. But a small intentional habit, a spoonful or two of natural peanut butter in that half hour before bed, appears to gently support several of these processes at once. Steady your blood sugar through the night. A few of the raw materials your brain uses to produce its own sleep hormone, a modest amount of protein to support overnight muscle repair, a dose of magnesium to help your nervous system actually settle down, and healthy fats that fit well into a heart-conscious way of eating. None of this is a miracle cure. It won't undo years of poor sleep overnight, and it's not a substitute for the basics: a consistent bedtime, a dark, quiet room, moving your body during the day, and talking to your doctor about any sleep issues that are seriously affecting your life. But as a small, low-cost addition to your evening routine, it's one of those rare habits that's simple, inexpensive, and genuinely grounded in how your body works after 50. If this was helpful, and if you learned even one thing you didn't know before, do me a favor and share it with someone in your life who's been struggling with their sleep lately. Sometimes the simplest changes are the ones we overlook the longest. And if you want more simple, practical habits like this one, the kind that actually fit into a real, everyday life after 50, stick around, because that's exactly what we're going to keep covering here. Thanks so much for spending this time with me today. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.